The Odyssey of Homer, Book 7, The Palace of Alcinous. So the much-enduring Odysseus prayed in Athena's grove, and the two sturdy mules brought the princess to the city. When she reached her father's famous palace, she drew up at the entrance, and her brothers, looking like the immortals, gathered round her, unharnessed the mules from the cart, and carried the clothes indoors. She herself retired to her own apartment, where a fire was lit for her by her waiting woman Eurymedusa, an old Epiraian woman. She had been brought by ship from Epiraya years ago and selected as a prize for Alcinous, the king of all the Phaeacians, and idolized by the people as a god. It was this woman who had nursed the white-armed Nausicaa at home, and who now lit a fire and prepared supper in the inner room. Then Odysseus started for the town. Athena, in her concern for his welfare, enveloped him in a thick mist, in case some high-handed Phaeacian who crossed his path insulted him and asked him who he was. He was just about to go into the pleasant town when the bright-eyed goddess herself came to meet him, disguised as a young girl carrying a pitcher, and halted in front of him. "My child," said the good Odysseus, "I wonder if you could show me the way to the house of Alcinous, the king of this country. I've had a hard time. I'm a stranger here from a distant land, and I don't know a single soul in the city or the country around." "Sir," replied the bright-eyed Athena, "certainly. I'll show you the house you want, since it lies close to my good father's place. But you must follow my lead without a word, look at nobody, and ask no questions. For the people here have little affection for strangers, and do not welcome visitors with open arms. They put their trust in fast ships that carry them across the far-flung sea, for that is a privilege granted by Poseidon, and these ships of theirs are as swift as a bird, or as a thought itself." With this Pallas Athena led the way quickly, and Odysseus followed in the steps of the goddess. The Phaeacians, those famous seamen, failed to observe him as he passed them by on his way through the town, for the formidable goddess Athena of the lovely hair prevented it, shedding a magic mist round her favourite in her concern for his safety. As he walked, Odysseus marvelled at the harbours with their trim ships, at the meeting place of the sea lords, and at their long and lofty walls, surmounted by palisades, presenting a wonderful sight. When they reached the king's famous palace, the bright-eyed goddess Athena said, "Here, sir, is the house that you asked me to show you. You will find princes, favourites of Zeus, feasting there. But go straight in and have no qualms, for it is the bold man who always succeeds in his enterprises, even if he comes from far away. The first person you will find in the palace will be the queen. Her name is Arete, and she comes from the same family as Alcinous the king. Nausithous, the first of the line, was the son of Poseidon the earth-shaker, and of Periboia, the loveliest woman of her time. She was the youngest daughter of the great Eurymedon, who was once king of that overweeningly proud race, the giants, but led that wicked race to its destruction, and his own too. Poseidon slept with Periboia, and by her had the great-hearted Nausithous, who became king of the Phaeacians. And Nausithous had two sons, Rhexenor and Alcinous. Rhexenor had not long been married, and had as yet no son when he was killed in his palace by Apollo with his silver bow. But he left one daughter, Arete. Alcinous made her his wife, and gave her such honour as no other woman receives who keeps house under her husband's eye in the world today. Such is the extraordinary and heartfelt devotion which she has enjoyed in the past, and still enjoys, both from her children and Alcinous himself, and from the people who look on her as a goddess, and greet her when she walks through the town. For she is also a wise woman, and when her sympathies are enlisted, she settles even men's disputes. So, if only you can secure her friendly interest, you may well hope to see your friends once more, to return to the high roof of your own house and to your native land." Athena finished, and now left the pleasant land of Scheria, crossed the unharvested seas, and came to Marathon in the broad streets of Athens, where she entered the great palace of Erechtheus. Now Odysseus approached Alcinous's splendid dwelling. His heart was filled with varied emotions, and he kept on stopping before he reached the bronze threshold. A kind of radiance, like that of the sun or moon, played upon the high-roofed halls of the great king. Bronze walls, topped by a frieze of dark blue enamel, ran round to left and right from the portals to the back of the court. The interior of the well-built mansion was guarded by golden doors hung on posts of silver which were set in the bronze threshold. The lintel they supported was of silver too, and the door handle of gold. On either side stood gold and silver dogs, which Hephaestus had made with consummate skill, to keep watch over the palace of the great-hearted Alcinous, and serve him as immortal sentries never doomed to age. Inside the hall, tall chairs were ranged along the walls on either side, right round from the threshold to the chamber at the back, and each was draped with a delicately woven cover that the women had worked. Here the Phaeacian chieftains used to sit and enjoy the food and wine, of which there was always a lavish supply. Golden statues of youths, fixed on solid pedestals, held flaming torches in their hands, to light the banqueters in the hall by night. The house keeps 50 maids employed. Some grind apple golden corn in the handmill, some weave at the loom, or sit and twist yarn, their hands fluttering like the leaves of a tall poplar, while soft olive oil drips from the close-woven fabrics they have finished. For the Phaeacians' extraordinary skill in handling ships at sea is matched by the dexterity of their womenfolk at the loom, for Athena has given them outstanding skill in beautiful crafts and such fine intelligence. Just outside the entrance to the courtyard, surrounded by a wall, lies a large orchard of 4 acres. Pears and pomegranates, apple trees with glossy fruit, sweet figs, and luxuriant olives. Their fruit never fails nor runs short, winter and summer alike. It comes at all seasons of the year, and there is never a time when the west wind's breath is not assisting, here the bud and there the ripening fruit, so that pear after pear, apple after apple, cluster on cluster of grapes, and fig upon fig are always coming to perfection. In the same enclosure there is a fruitful vineyard, in one part of which is a warm patch of level ground, where some of the grapes are drying in the sun, while others are being gathered or trodden in the winepress, and on the foremost rows hang unripe bunches that have just dropped their blossom or showed the first faint tinge of purple. Beyond the furthest row, vegetable beds of various kinds are neatly laid out, luxuriantly productive all the year round. In the garden are 2 springs. One flows in channels to all parts of it. The other, starting next to it, first provides a watering place for the townspeople, and then runs under the courtyard gate towards the great house itself. Such were the glorious gifts the gods had bestowed on Alcinous's house. Patient good Odysseus stood before the house and drank it all in. When he had admired it to his heart's content, he stepped briskly over the threshold and entered the palace. There he found the captains and counsellors of the Phaeacians pouring libations from their cups to the keen-eyed giant-slayer Hermes. It was their custom to pour the last cup to him before retiring to bed. But the much-enduring good Odysseus walked straight up the hall, wrapped in the mist that Athena shed about him, till he reached Arete and King Alcinous, and threw his arms around Arete's knees. At the same moment the magic mist that had hidden him rolled away, and at the sight of this man in their midst, a silence fell on all the banqueters up and down the hall. They stared at Odysseus in amazement while he made his petition. Arete, daughter of godlike Roxenor, as one who has suffered much, I come, a suppliant, to your husband, to you, and to your guests. May the gods grant them happiness for life, and may each bequeath to his sons the treasures of his house and the honors bestowed on him by the people. But for me, please arrange an escort to my own country, as soon as may be, for I have had to live through many hardships far from my friends. His petition made, he sat down in the ashes by the hearth close to the fire. From that whole company there came not a sound. At last the silence was broken by the venerable Lord Echeneus, a Phaeacian elder, an eloquent speaker, rich in the wisdom of his forefathers. He now made his friendly counsel heard. Alcinous, it is unseemly and unlike your royal ways to let a stranger sit in the ashes at the hearth, while the guests around you must patiently await your lead. Sir, tell him to get up and sit on one of the silver chairs, and tell your squires to mix some more wine, so that we can make a fresh libation to Zeus the Thunderer, patron of suppliants, who deserve respect. And let the housekeeper give him a meal from all she has available. The mighty Alcinous listened to what Acheneus said, took the wise and subtle Odysseus by the hand, raised him from the hearth, and seated him on a tall polished chair, from which he moved the friendly Laodamas, his favourite son, who was sitting next to him. A maid came with water in a beautiful golden jug and poured it out over a silver basin to rinse his hands. Then she drew a wooden table to his side, and the faithful housekeeper brought some bread and put it by him with a choice of delicacies, helping him liberally to all she could offer. While the much-enduring good Odysseus ate and drank, mighty Alcinous gave an order to his squire. Pontonos, mix a bowl of wine, and fill the cups of all the company in the hall, so that we may now make a drink offering to Zeus the Thunderer, patron of suppliants, who deserve respect. So Pontonos prepared a bowl of mellow wine, from which he poured out a few drops in each man's cup. Then, when they had made their libations and drunk their fill, Alcinous addressed them. Captains and counsellors of the Phaeacians, listen while I tell you what is in my mind. Now you have dined, disperse to your homes for the night, and in the morning we will summon a fuller gathering of the elders to entertain our visitor here, and to sacrifice to the gods. We shall then take up the matter of his passage, so as to ensure him without trouble or anxiety the happiness of a speedy return to his country under our escort, however far away it is. We will safeguard him on the way from any further hardship or accident, till he sets foot on his own land. After which he must suffer whatever destiny and the relentless fate spun for him with the first thread of life when he came from his mother's womb. But if he is one of the immortals come down from heaven, then the gods must be playing some new trick on us. For in the past they have always shown themselves to us without disguise, when we have offered them their sumptuous sacrifices. And at our banquets they sit at our side. Even when a traveller meets them on his lonely way, they make no concealment, for we are special to them, like the Cyclopes and the wild tribes of the giants. Alcinous, the shrewd Odysseus replied, put that idea out of your mind. I have neither the looks nor the stature of the immortal gods who live in heaven, but those of a human being. Think of the wretches who in your experience have borne the heaviest load of sorrow, and I will match my grief with theirs. Indeed, I think I could tell an even longer tale of woe, if I gave you an account of what, by the gods' will, I have suffered. But in spite of all my troubles, give me leave to eat my supper, for nothing in the world is so shamelessly demanding as a man's confounded stomach. However afflicted he may be and sick at heart, it calls for attention so loudly that he is bound to obey it. Such is my case. My heart is sick with grief, yet my stomach insists that I eat and drink. It makes me forget all I have suffered and forces me to eat my fill. But at daybreak do make arrangements for landing this unfortunate guest of yours in his own country. I have had hard times indeed. Once let me see my own estate, my servants, and the high roof of my great house, and I shall be content to breathe my last. They all applauded his speech, and agreed that the stranger should be escorted home, for he had talked good sense. Then, after making a libation and satisfying their thirst, they retired for the night to their several homes, leaving good Odysseus sitting in the hall beside Arete and the godlike Alcinous, while the maids cleared their dinner things away. White-armed Arete was the first to break the silence, for in the fine cloak and tunic she saw him wearing, she recognized some clothes that she herself had made with her women's help. "Sir," she said, with words on wings, "I myself will question you and ask you this first. Who are you? Where do you come from? And who gave you those clothes? Didn't you say you came here from wandering over the seas?" "My queen," the shrewd Odysseus replied, "it would be wearisome to tell you all my troubles from first to last, for the gods have sent me so many. But I will tell you this much in answer to your questions. Far out at sea there is an island called Ogygia, where Atlas's daughter, the artful Calypso, lives, the awesome goddess with braided hair. No god or mortal man comes near her, and yet I had the misfortune to be brought by some power to her hearth. I was alone, for with one of his blinding bolts Zeus had smashed my good ship to pieces out in the wine-dark sea. My loyal company all lost their lives, but with both arms I clasped the curved ship's keel, and for 9 days kept afloat. In the blackness of the 10th night, the gods washed me ashore on Ogygia, the home of Calypso, that formidable goddess with the beautiful locks. She took me in, and looked after me with loving care. She offered me immortality and eternal youth. But never for a moment did she win my heart. 7 whole years I stayed, soaking with my tears the imperishable clothes Calypso gave me. But at last, when the 8th came round in its course, she urged me to be gone, either in obedience to a message from Zeus or because her own feelings had changed. She sent me off in a solidly made raft, after providing me generously with bread and sweet wine and giving me imperishable clothes to wear. She also caused a warm and kindly wind to blow. So for 17 days I sailed across the sea, and on the 18th the shadowy mountains of your land loomed up, and I rejoiced. Too soon, poor man, for I was destined to meet further troubles, which Poseidon the earth-shaker was yet to send me. Rousing the winds against me, he stopped me from making headway, and as I sat groaning there, he stirred the sea to such unspeakable fury that the waves made it impossible for me to stay on my raft. A squall smashed it to pieces. However, I managed by swimming to make my way across the stretch of water till the winds and the waves brought me to your coast. Then I tried to scramble ashore, but a wave took and dashed me on the great rocks of that inhospitable coast. So I gave up the plan and swam away from the shore. In the end I reached a river which seemed to offer the best possible landing place, clear of rocks and sheltered from the winds. I struggled out and lay there till I could rally my strength. Meanwhile the solemn night came on. After climbing up from the bed of that heaven-fed river, I lay down in a thicket, heaped leaves over my body, and with a god's help fell into a sound sleep. I was exhausted and slept there in the leaves all night, and right through the morning into the middle of the day. The sun was on his downward path when I awoke from my refreshing sleep to find your daughter's ladies playing on the beach. The princess herself was with them, looking like a goddess. I asked her help, and she proved what good sense she has, acquitting herself in a way you would not expect in one so young. Young people are thoughtless as a rule. But she gave me plenty of bread and sparkling wine, bathed me in the river, and provided me with the clothes you see. That is the truth of the matter, painful as it is to tell it. Sir, said Alcinous, in one respect my daughter's judgment is faulty. She should have brought you home with her maids. After all, she was the first person you had begged for help. My lord, replied the resourceful Odysseus, do not rebuke your peerless daughter. She did tell me to follow along with the servants. But in my modesty I shrank from doing so, fearing that you might be indignant at the sign. We men are naturally suspicious. My friend, replied Alcinous, I am not one to take offence with no good reason. It is always better to be reasonable. I wish, by Zeus and Athena and Poseidon, I wish that a man like you, like-minded with myself, could have my daughter and remain here as my son-in-law. I would give you a house and riches. That is, if you were willing to stay. But not one of us Phaeacians shall detain you. God forbid such a thing. And to set your mind at rest, I now appoint a day for your departure home. Tomorrow. You shall lie deep in sleep while they row you over tranquil seas, till you come to your own country, and your house, or anywhere else where you would like to go. Nor does it matter if the place is even more remote than Euboea, which is said to be at the world's end by those of our sailors who saw it, that time they took auburn-haired Rhadamanthus to visit Tityus, the son of Earth. They got there and returned in 1 day without fatigue. But you shall learn from your own experience the surpassing excellence of my ships, and how good my young men are at whipping up the water with their oars. Odysseus's patient heart filled with happiness as he listened, and he raised his voice in prayer. O Father Zeus, grant that Alcinous may accomplish all that he has promised. Then his fame would never die anywhere on the fruitful earth, and I should come again to the land of my fathers." While they were conversing, white-armed Arete gave her maids instructions to put a bed in the portico, and to furnish it with the finest purple rugs, spread coverlets over these, and add warm blankets on top. The servants, torch in hand, went out of the hall and busied themselves at this task. When they had spread the bedclothes on the bed, they came up to Odysseus and invited him to retire. "Come along, sir," they said, "your bed is made." The prospect of sleep seemed very sweet to him. So the long-suffering good Odysseus slept there in the echoing portico on a wooden bed. Alcinous lay down for the night in his room at the back of the lofty palace with his wife, who shared his bed.